Hi, Mary. It's always good to have you here.
It's great to be back.
All right, so you're going to talk about bats today.
I'm going to talk about bats. So bats are really misunderstood mammals. They get a bad rap. So we're going to try to dispel some myths and learn a little bit more about bats and maybe appreciate them a little bit more.
Yeah, let's see if we can appreciate them a little bit more.
Okay.
All right.
So they belong to the order of Chiroptera, which is kind of cool. It means hand wing. So if you look at a bat wing, it's not like a bird wing. It's more like a hand with thin skin stretched around it. So that's how they get their name. There's over 1,400 different species around the world. Only 3 of them are what we call vampire bats.
Okay.
None of those are found in the United States. So
but they actually do exist.
They do. There's 3. One mainly feeds on like cattle, and the other 2 specialize in birds.
Wow.
But we don't have to worry about those in the United States. We don't have those around here. Almost all the bats we have here are insect eaters.
Okay, good.
They're our only flying mammal too, so that makes them really unique. Flying squirrels have the name flying, but they're actually gliders. So bats unique that they're our only flying mammal.
Okay, how about that?
Yeah.
Pretty neat. So far, so good. I'm intrigued. All right.
But I want to talk about a couple myths because there's a lot of myths out about bats.
Okay.
One of the first ones is that bats are blind. Right?
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah, they're not blind. They actually have pretty good vision. But sometimes, because of the way they hunt with echolocation, it can seem that they're flying after nothing, or sometimes you can trick them to fly after a rock because they see it as a big insect.
Okay.
So they're not blind. Another myth out there is that they like to fly in your hair. I don't know why that.
I heard that one.
I don't know. They like to get tangled in hair. But I think that probably started from somebody leaving a cave at the same time bats were trying to leave, but they don't like to be in people's hair unless it's full of bugs.
Okay, maybe. Yeah.
And then the last one is about rabies. Now it's important to remember that just about any mammal can carry rabies. Bats can be a source of rabies, but it's really less than 1% that can carry rabies. Best thing you can do if you see a bat on the ground, to leave it alone.
Okay. Wow, how about that? So yeah, we're dispelling those myths.
Yes.
All right, good job. All right, so now we're going to talk about the benefits.
Yeah, so there's even more benefits than just eating insects, right? So a bat can eat about half of its body weight in insects a night. So that's a huge amount of insects that they're taking out. And that can reduce our use of pesticides and help keep the cost of certain crops low when they're destroying some of these harmful pests that are getting on there. The other one is pollination, especially the further south you go. Some plants are pollinated by bats, including the agave plant.
Uh-oh.
Do you know what that's?
Tequila.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
If you like tequila, you should thank bats. They're the primary pollinator of the agave plant.
How about that?
That's a good one. And then this is really unique too. Now, it's not so much here in North America, but in the rainforest, when tracts of land are clear cut, it's hard for seeds to get back there and get reestablished. But for fruit-eating bats, they're one of the primary seed dispersers to help new or clear-cut tracts of land start to get some new plants on them too. So lots of benefits, no matter where you are in the world, that bats have.
Wow, didn't know that.
Yeah.
So there you go, folks. Tequila, how about that? Thank a bat for that. So what are some of the challenges that the bats have to face?
Yeah, so they're definitely facing a couple challenges. One is just the myths that we talked about. People don't fully understand them. Another big one is habitat destruction. And then also there's some diseases like white nose syndrome.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's can be up to like 95% fatal in some colonies. So it's pretty serious. It can draw bats out of hibernation when they don't have enough fat stores, things like that. And then lastly, invasive species, right? So when we introduce invasive species, pollinators aren't attracted to that. That's the food source for our bats. So that kind of connection between the two we're missing when we use the invasive plants.
How about that? Okay. Yeah, those are real challenges for those bats. All right, so how can we help them?
Okay, so the first thing is we can provide some habitat for them. There are some bats that we utilize bat boxes, and depending on where you are, you can look and see what would be the right type of bat box for your area. And those can be used in the winter and the summertime, sometimes even by different bats. So providing some additional habitat for them, planting native plants like we talked about to attract to their food source, and then helping to dispel some of the myths that we were talking about too.
So in the bat boxes, I mean, how high do they have to be up, some of the structures?
Yeah,
or trees?
Yeah, so probably about 12 to 15 feet. And one of the important things that a lot of people forget about when putting up bat boxes is make sure to put a predator guard on the bottom. Raccoons can climb and they can, take a couple bats every night. So it's important to put a predator guard up there too if you're gonna put up some housing.
Okay. And something else about bats I've heard before, so they hang upside down, they sleep upside down, is that right?
Yeah, that's right,
okay.
yeah.
Wow, that's interesting to me.
It is, yeah. One other thing I was going to mention too, there are caves that are closing right now because of white nose syndrome.
Okay.
And so it's important for people not to enter those caves so that they're not spreading white nose syndrome from one colony to another.
Okay, wow, how about that? And of course, I'm sure you probably heard about bat guano. It's supposed to be pretty high in nitrogen.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that use that as a nitrogen source in their gardens.
Yeah, that's another benefit of bats is the guano that they produce can be a great fertilizer.
That's pretty good. So bats are good. And can you tell us a little bit about what you have here?
Yeah, so one of the things about bats is people don't realize how small most of our bats are. So this is just a representation of one of our bats here in North America. But they can get really large. They can vary in size from just a few inches to something over 6 feet, a group of bats called flying foxes, which can get wingspans over 6 feet. Here's a nice example of the skeleton, and you can see what I was talking about with the wing that kind of looks like an hand with fingers extended.
It's pretty impressive. Wow, so I hope we dispelled all those myths about bats and let folks know the bats are actually beneficial. Now, do they eat more than just mosquitoes though? Because we always get that question.
Right, so definitely they're gonna be going for larger insects too. That's a little bit more of a payoff. So a lot of those nighttime flying insects, those are the same ones that the bats are going after as well.
Okay, and I know you mentioned pollinating the agave plant, but also bananas, I've heard.
Yeah, giant cacti, they can help pollinate. And there's some other nut trees that they can have a role in pollinating as well.
What about mangoes? I've heard that before. Is that?
Yeah, they can. So they're not, with the agave, they're one of the primary pollinators, but they can definitely pollinate other plants as well.
Okay. So how about that? Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that good information about those bats. And hopefully, again, we can dispel those myths, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please click the subscribe button below.